He's the man, he's the myth, he's the legend. He's the scientist with all the answers and all the questions. It's time for another episode of Alex's Science Corner.
Where's the Oops. You turned it all off. You turned it all off.
I hit the wrong button.
So we gotta start this again or what?
I'm sure my trainee's impressed. Hey, it happens to everybody.
This is what not to do on the radio.
So what's going on in the wide world of science, my friend?
Okay, first up, and this is another one of those misleading headlines. Naked mole rats turn into plants when oxygen is low. Okay, so this is not, the headline is not correct, but they found that naked mole rats can survive in very, very low oxygen conditions, and they can also survive for about 12 minutes or so without oxygen at all.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really, really impressive. And they can survive at like 5% oxygen, which would kill mice, and they can survive that for several hours. Ooh. So, and what happens is the naked mole rats, humans and mammals, we metabolize sugars to keep our cells alive, and we need oxygen to metabolize the sucrose to give us energy and keep the cells alive. What happens is when the naked mole rats, when things start getting energy tight or oxygen light, they start converting fructose, which is a plant sugar, into energy instead. And so they can start using fructose, whereas in humans, we have to convert fructose into sucrose, and then we can use it.
Okay.
Right.
And this is important because when we do interstellar travel, it'll help.
Well, one of the hopes and one they're talking about is seeing if we can help people who are
and unfortunately
put into
that, yeah.
Right. It's put into. I know you're not there now. That's.
Sounds like you miss them.
Sorry.
So what it is again is for people that are unfortunately put into a low oxygen environment to try and have them survive that process. Now, the challenge, of course, is how much of this is something that we can, I want to say, add to humans or people, or how much is just, the whole body of what's going on in the metabolism of the mole rat. But obviously, this is something that gives us a lot of information how they can survive that. Next is a smaller story. Physicists are finding that when they're smashing more particles again at the Large Hadron Collider, they are finding that some of the particles they've been smashing have not been smashing the way they expect them to, which means that there may be new particles that may be forming. And so the physicists are excited about that because new particles means new things they've got figured out.
Right?
Not new elements.
Okay.
It's going to be new stuff to figure out about how the atoms and the little pieces of the atoms are put together.
Okay.
And the reason I'm cutting that story short, it was an interesting story, but it goes into so much detail and math that it's definitely over my head. So I'm just going to say there's some new stuff over there.
Math is hard.
Yeah, math is hard.
I always liked math.
Said the accountant.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing with you, said the computer person. And
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So last one is an interesting story about doctors are beginning to identify a variation of illnesses. Now, there have been illnesses that have known that have caused mental problems of people that catch certain illnesses. But what they are now beginning to see, or they're starting to identify, I should say, is that some illnesses cause the body to react, which, you get sick, your body starts forming antibodies. Well, for some illnesses, the antibodies that are created to fight the illness can start damaging the brain. So it's not the illness itself, it's the antibodies that the body's
against
forming.
Itself, yeah.
Right. And
Isn't that
so,
what MS is? Is the body attacking itself?
yeah, that's a different variation. That's against the muscles. Now they're finding something that does that. It starts causing inflammation of the brain. And when your brain starts changing, you change. And what they found is like this.
Yeah, it could be my problem.
And less
We're
said
starting
about
out
that
when you
right
need
now,
it.
the better. But one of the things they're trying is, first off, is trying to identify these cases, because they know the child or the person got sick, but they don't know whether it's the illness that caused it or if it's the body responding to the illness that caused it, because you have to treat it in two different ways. If it's the illness that caused it, then you got to treat the illness itself.
So is it a personality change that they're seeing?
Yes.
Because of this? Okay.
Exactly. And for example, the one case that they're talking about in the story is a kid who's a nice kid, but he got a particular illness, and he started showing signs of ADHD and OCD and became violent.
Ooh.
And so he was institutionalized for several years because of his violence and the other traits that he was exhibiting. It was only after they started treating him with medications that reduced inflammation, like steroids, and also started to treat him with, let's see here, small type on my notes, intravenous immunoglobulin, to try and replace the not necessarily the blood, but to help the inflammation and to help the immune system rebuild itself. And so once the immune system got itself rebuilt, then he became normal again, because the inflammation in his brain went away.
Okay.
But this is one of those things about the brain. There's a lot of fascinating, interesting things about the brain that we are still learning, and how the brain is affected by different things. So it's just one more step of, it's an illness caused it, but it wasn't the illness that was doing the damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow. Pretty straight up Alex's Science Corner. If I hadn't botched the intro, it'd be quite good.
Yeah,
Well,
and
we
so
missed
I'm sure
our
Monica's sitting there going, wow, I got to hear a story.
Yeah, without someone interrupting. All right, if you have any questions about these stories or anything else science related, you can call Alex right now at the station at 203
837
99.
24.